Hello and welcome back to Monster Monday. On today's episode, Fen and I are going to explore yet another cool monster from the Castles and Crusades Monsters and Treasure book. It's the Adherer. Okay, Fen, so I found a random monster.
Yeah.
And I made you read this monster entry.
Yes.
Have you ever read this before or encountered this monster in any game?
Not yet, but after reading it, I have fear, so.
Good answer. All right, so the Adherer is a aberration. Now, the funny thing about that is it appears like an undead creature, much like a mummy, but it's not. It's an aberration. And I would say that this is probably a mid-level monster, but as you may or may not know in Monster Monday, I like to share with people ideas for how you could scale a monster. So even if it's too deadly for mid-level, how could you use it in low-level, but also high-level ways, and how to scale that. So the creature is normally found in crypts and tombs, but rarely in other environs. They seek out areas where undead reside due to their resemblance to mummies. The Adherer has thick folds of loose skin that hang from its body, resembling the cloth wraps that envelop these undead. Like mummies, they are susceptible to fire and avoided at all costs. Some quick-witted viewers may notice that the creature does not have wraps about its head, for the Adherer has a head and face much like humans. Its eyes are a watery blue, and its lips are colorless. All Adherers are hairless, including a bald pate. That means they're bald-headed, like me. Combat. The Adherer will approach its victim rather quickly, which may betray their facade as undead, and strike its victims with its fists. The creature never uses a weapon of any kind, favoring brute force. They choose victims at random, showing no fear against even superior forces. All right, now Fen, before we get into the Adherer's special abilities, what are your initial thoughts about encountering this? Imagine that you are a mid, maybe even high-level party. You are in some kind of dungeon, ruins, crypt, tomb, and you see a group of zombies, and you're thinking like, oh, they're zombies, they're low-level, no problem. And then you see a thing that looks like a mummy behind that horde of zombies.
I think it would depend on what the zombies are dressed like, because you assume a timeline of a mummy versus some zombies that might be like in medieval armor. So that could be kind of a hint of what you're dealing with. Might be a little different. And when it starts like sprinting at you,
right,
that might be cause for a lot more concern.
Yes.
So.
And as a valid point, in its stack block, it has a movement speed of 30. So I think, now, for me, I'm a fan of zombie movies.
Yeah.
And particularly the original OG slow-moving zombies in the style of like The Walking Dead. Now, for those of you who know The Walking Dead, you'll know that in later seasons, there were a group of people who blended in amongst zombies by wearing zombie skins and coating themselves in zombie guts, and they were the Whisperers.
Oh, okay.
And how the Whisperers got the better of many of their opponents is by blending in with the zombie horde, but then when they got within melee range, they would quickly move in and like stab.
That's terrifying.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
it's really cool.
Right.
I would be so scared
Yes.
if it starts running at me.
Yes. So all of a sudden, you have somebody who you think is slow moving, and then they move just as fast as you do, right? So another thing that the Adherer has that makes it pretty cool is it has two special abilities, adhesion and camouflage. Now, we're not going to read directly from the book because you should buy this book because it is the best monster manual I've ever seen.
No, it's really nicely laid out. The Adherer has like yellow eyes instead of blue, which was the only thing I noticed. But that's just me.
Yeah, valid.
But
So
yeah,
let's
good
talk
book.
about the adhesion ability. So they have the ability to secrete like a very sticky glue. They do literally refer to it as glue.
They're
right?
like a glue spirit.
Yeah,
They
a glue
just are
spirit.
glue.
And what I found interesting, and we reread this, is there's no limit to how often they could do this. Like with a lot of other monsters' special abilities, it's like a one per something, one per encounter kind of use. Or maybe it's like if you break free, the monster's ability can't be used against you again.
Yeah.
There's no such rule with the Adherer. They could just keep sticking you and then pummeling you.
Which is kind of nuts.
Right. So they can secrete a thick, viscous adhesive from their bodies at will. That is awesome. This substance smells of dead bodies, which further strengthens their ties to the undead that they live with. Anything that touches an adherer will be stuck to the creature unless the adhesive is overcome. Now, here's a fine point. As a DM, I think about that. Because initially, some of you might be like, okay, that's cool. The adherer can like grab somebody, stick them, and if they don't make their strength save, then
like
just
stuck.
beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
But that's not all that they can do.
So much
If
worse.
I attack them with a melee weapon,
Yeah.
I get to roll. Every attack, anything that touches them, this is the crucial part. A melee weapon that touches them now has to make that strength check to not get stuck. I mean,
That's going to be hard.
imagine that you're like a mid to high level party and your favorite weapon is your, +2 Warhammer.
Yeah.
And you hit this thing, but now
Stuck.
you failed that roll, it's stuck.
Yeah.
And your
That's
Warhammer,
gnarly.
is your main weapon,
Yeah.
right? Like, and some people don't travel with backup weapons, or if they do, it's like, I have a dagger.
Oh, no, that's me.
This just
Small.
made the Adherer into a total badass.
No, it totally is. I think one thing that would be cool to explore with you here is like when it started mentioning like the glue and stuff, all I could think of is like a spider web situation where like over time it like secretes enough glue and like sticks like the bodies that it surrounds itself by into like a really like kind of messed up spider web situation.
I could totally see that.
Right?
That's brilliant.
Like a creepy spider mummy
as a
thing.
DM, if you have this in a dungeon, crypt, tomb, ruins,
You can't see that well.
like you're going through this area, it's almost like the movie Alien. Like
Yeah.
it could put victims into sticky situations, right? And have like your spider web
Yeah.
thing, or weapons.
Oh,
like
yeah,
just
yeah.
stuck to different
there.
things, just glued to the walls, glued to the ceiling,
Casually
glued to the
there.
floor. And that could be like you're almost foreshadowing the encounter with the adherers.
Yeah.
Because as the party's moving through, and maybe they fight a couple spiders.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
they
yeah,
fight
yeah.
a couple,
For sure.
a couple zombies or skeletons.
Zombie
And they're
spiders.
like, oh, whatever, this is weird, but these
But,
are
like,
easy.
yeah.
Because they haven't encountered
Or-
the adherer yet.
The other one I was thinking of, I don't know if it can fully do this or not, but I think it'd be cool, is if it secretes enough of the like glue, and then if it's like a really muddy or damp cave, it slowly mixes it into the mud, so you're pretty much like it's harder to walk through, so you lessen your mobility as well.
It makes difficult terrain.
Yeah.
I totally think that's possible.
Just-
you know what
just to,
else?
like, fuck with you.
You know what else could make difficult terrain? If it just took all the weapons that it collected on itself over
Yeah.
time and just stuck them in the ground, so it's like
yeah.
in the walls, and like to get through this cave, you have to like go around swords
It's like
and
a-
daggers that are stuck,
Like what are those called?
like a pit trap.
Like an Iron Maiden situation
Yes.
where it like can close on you.
Yes.
Because it says it doesn't hold anything, but it can do so much more.
Right. Exactly. So to break free for whatever, an attack against it, or if it attacks you, you have to make this strength check. As written, that's a pretty low challenge level.
Yeah.
Like now in Castles and Crusades, a challenge level of 8 might be ramped up in D&D 5e to like 13 or 14. So again, as a DM, if you're using the Adherer in whatever system that you're playing your fantasy role-playing game in, you can choose how hard it is to break free. So if you really want to challenge a higher level party, just make it a way higher DC, like 20,
So bad.
And inevitably, someone's going to lose their weapons, or someone's going to get stuck and then pummeled by the Adherer.
Yeah.
Remember, if the Adherer is traveling amongst other undead, that's another way that you could scale it up. So
yeah.
if the party's just fighting an Adherer by themselves, eventually they'll defeat it,
Yeah.
right? But if there are a couple Adherers and some zombies and some skeletons, or if you're playing high level, throw in some ghosts or a white.
You know, it might be cool if you have a bad guy that's an illusionist, and you do like a really like creepy horror situation where it seems like you're walking into like a random cafe you found, and as you're getting there, it becomes harder to move because secretly an adherer is at work, and like everywhere, like you go to grab something and like you're slowly getting like more stuck.
Yes.
And then the illusion disappears and you're trapped.
Yes. That is also
That'd be a
awesome.
problem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which makes terrain and exploration more
yes.
challenging, right?
Yes.
Not just the fight, it's about the environment. We'll get into that when we start to build like a story about how to use these.
Oh, yeah.
So if you fail to check, the Adherer gets a +10 on all attack rolls against you, which is awesome.
It's terrifying.
Let me just jot back to the attacks. 2 fists, 1d3. That's not a lot of damage.
But if you get stuck a lot.
Right, but I would ramp it up. Like,
Yeah.
feel free to make each fist attack 1d6 or
Yeah.
3d4.
Depending on the party levels, that could be
Right,
terrifying.
depending on your party, you could ramp up that damage. Here's another idea.
Yeah.
What if it has daggers stuck to its forearms and fists, and it's basically able to like Wolverine
I was going to say, I'm
opponents?
like, so Wolverine.
Yeah.
No, that would be nuts.
Right? So now that fist attack that normally by the book does 1d3, maybe it's doing
I think it'd be fascinating
3d4.
if you come up to like a family of these guys, and like the younger ones don't really have anything because they're still young, but the older they get, the more kind of stuff they have attached to them.
Yes.
Helpful to them or not, but like
Yes.
it builds up over time.
Save that idea for building an adventure because I like layers of
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Okay, so the creature uses this as a form of defense, hoping to relieve its opponents of all weapons and shields. Once the battle's over, they will release all items and place them in a hidden cache somewhere about their lair. So as we said, they could be just gluing crap up
Yeah.
like trophies or as lair defenses.
think
So
both.
totally
Yeah.
totally a good way to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing they have is camouflage. So let's talk about that. Their camouflage ability
It's super cool.
allows them to blend in and give them an advantage when they are surrounded by dead, like actually dead or undead things.
Or
While tomb-dwelling adherers use their faux undead appearance, those living in other places may use their adhesive to drape themselves in random detritus, leaves, dirt, sticks, to form a camouflage in hopes of surprising their victims. Those found in such areas must pass a wisdom check or be taken by surprise. So you had an idea about that.
Yeah.
What would an adherer out in the middle of the woods or in a swamp or in the grasslands, what would that effectively be?
I would have, if I was playing and I saw a pile of like leaves and sticks moving, I'm going for Shambling Mound right away.
Yes.
So I would approach it not worried that, you know, my weapon's about to get stuck.
Yes.
So I would walk up totally unaware because I would think, oh, Shambling Mound, until it eventually becomes apparent that it's not. I think that'd be terrifying as well.
There's a little note in here towards the end of the camouflage part. During combat, if a large amount of acidic liquid, be it acid, wine, or alcohol, is thrown on the adherer must pass a constitution check. Failure means the adhesive is momentarily rendered inert and all items so stuck will be released. To me, the only way that a player is going to have the idea to like, I'm going to throw this bottle of wine at the...
Yeah.
They're going to do that if they're metagaming, if they know this monster.
Yeah.
That's the only way in which they're going to think to do that. And maybe they have some kind of knowledge of monsters and they've made a monster lore sort of check, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say that the Adherer is something that would definitely catch people by surprise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard of this before.
Right. And
this
and
is
in the
insane.
appearance of a mummy and surrounded by dead and undead things, I think most people would assume it's undead. Now let's imagine
Yeah.
an adventure. We've talked about ruins, catacombs, caves, that kind of stuff. In what world would a party, mid-level be encountering this, right? So an adventuring party goes on adventures for a reason. There's always a motivation for the
Yeah.
adventuring party to go adventuring, right?
Yeah.
It could be to rescue someone who's been kidnapped. It could just be treasure. Treasure's always a great motivation,
Yeah.
right? Or the recovery of some relic or artifact, and they've been commissioned by some powerful, wealthy person to go get this thing from this tomb.
I think another really good one is like mass town miscommunication. So they everyone is like, for sure you're going against a mummy. Because like if you look at this thing,
Yes.
I thought it was a mummy. I've never heard of this before.
Ooh, so,
I
like-
fully would assume that's what I'm going in for.
Yes.
And then as you walk in, like the party slowly is like, something's not quite right. There's stuff glued on the walls. Like,
so
over
maybe
time,
it's almost like
not right.
The town or the local region folklore is that, like, rumor has it is that the old ruins of the wizard's tower or the tombs in the abandoned village, the crypts supposedly have some mummy there, and as long as you stay away from there, the mummy won't bother you, that kind of thing, right?
And then they're
but
gonna be like,
countless
"What if we went?"
adventurers and travelers have passed by there and have never returned, that kind of thing.
Especially if you want to do, if they've like passed by and they've heard like scary sounds like screaming or something, of like if you want to do the spider web kind of effect, or people being glued on the walls, you would hear like screaming.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, we should help people. Let's go in the cave.
What about if you used an NPC that the party is friends with as bait?
Oh yes.
So maybe the party made
that.
friends with an NPC who's like a fellow adventurer, or even just whatever, like an herbalist or an apothecary who was out collecting rare things and got captured, and now they have a reason, even more of a reason, to go rescue their friend in this crypt.
Yeah, I think that the baiting versus like the miscommunication will happen depending on the party's willingness to like kind of go along with the idea.
Yes, and you could use both of those.
Oh yeah.
Like as seeds to lure them in. Right?
Yeah.
So now they've gone in. They're going on this adventure, and we are basically building this adventure around the idea of the adherer. You mentioned a few minutes ago an idea to have like younger adherers.
Yes.
I don't see the adherers as like a family.
Okay. I wonder.
But wait.
Yeah. Okay.
But I totally think that your idea could still work. Yes. So if you have different ages or power levels of adherers, a younger adherer might be one that was made more recently.
Yes.
Right?
I'm thinking not family, but like teacher and apprentice. So it's more like a 2 situation. So there is that like loyalty.
Or like
to
a
the
cult.
older one.
If
Or
you
a
needed
cult.
more numbers, it could be a cult, and
Fully
the
scented.
adherers, the eldest, most powerful adherer is kind of the archpriest of this evil cult, and then there are like a few mid-level, and then like 3 or 4,
So
basically like
yes.
drones.
I do think though, if you were to do an older one and he has more stuff attached, that should slow him down. It'll make his attack stronger, but I think that would in fact slow him down, which would give him the need to create more adherers so that they can kind of like pick him off for him.
Right.
You
Just
know?
blades sticking out of him.
Yeah.
So maybe a higher AC.
Yeah.
Because he's harder to hit, because he's covered in shields and parts of armor and
Yeah.
blades. And then if anybody does an attack like a monk, somebody does an unarmed attack against him, maybe they get damaged. And then the mid-tier adherers could basically be kind of like by
Kinda
the
like
book,
the average, yeah.
with maybe some upgrades like the whole Wolverine blade thing
Yeah.
for more damage.
That'd be cool.
And then the lower level ones would be more by the book.
Yeah.
But with a few of those in a clan, right? So as the adventurers are going through whatever this place is, they're first encountering just normal undead,
Yeah.
zombies, skeletons, right? As they move through and progress, they encounter the first of the lesser adherers,
Yeah.
and there's a struggle.
Yeah.
And that's where they start to figure out like, oh crap,
Something's
this
not-
sticky thing, and
Yeah.
and you could totally use the camouflage thing.
Yeah.
And just the surprise attack. But then they resolve that. I think at some point, an adventuring party that has a cleric or a paladin, someone is
Yeah.
gonna think that this is an undead,
Yes.
and is gonna try to use their
Whatever they
divine
have.
ability,
Yes.
and might be confused when it doesn't show up on their undead radar, or their turn undead spell doesn't work against it.
Yep.
And that's
So-
even at the lowest level, because it's not undead, it's an aberration.
Yeah. So the one possible flaw with this is because when you have a party that goes into a cave or anything where these guys might be, first thing, there's probably 1 or 2 without dark vision, so you'd think torches.
Yes.
It does mention that they try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yes.
So that might be one thing that might be a little more of a slight giveaway. Also with the watery blue eyes, like there would be, I'm assuming there'd be like a gleam in the dark that also, so those are 2 things that like if someone's
That's a
aware,
good question.
it might start to like give it away.
So there's nothing that says that they have dark vision. Well, and here's the thing. As a GM, you could decide that they do. Or like some kind of limited dark vision.
Yeah.
Here's another thought. Because I really like where you're going with this.
Yeah.
When the party first encounters the first of the adherers and doesn't know what they are, but they look like a mummy, maybe the adherer attacks the people who aren't holding torches.
Oh.
That's the first hint that you're giving the party. Now, if they figure that out and they think, oh, let's try fire, or you have a spellcaster and blast some
boom.
kind of fire-based spell
Yeah.
and sees that they're susceptible.
I think one that would be really cool is if you have a party of like all humans or everyone that like doesn't have dark vision and they have like one torch because early on party, but you're doing like a horror kind of run through. What could be really cool and really terrifying is if they're going through, they have one torch, the person with the torch is kind of leading the way, and then they kind of like stop to like argue about something, and as they're talking, this giant like glob of some liquid, the glue, would slowly drip down and it would coat their torch and it would go out before they realized what was happening, and they're just kind of left in the dark, and then once they're done bickering, you hear like screeching and they're like, we can't see what's going on, and this got really scary.
That just
like
got really
full
scary.
cinematic like glob lights out.
And that's true, because let's say you have a party of 4 adventurers. Most of the time, not all 4 of them are carrying torches.
Exactly.
Because you have somebody doing ranged who can't carry a torch while they have a bow and arrow. You have somebody with a 2-handed sword who can't carry a torch, or a shield and a weapon. So that's definitely a thing, right? And I like the idea of the adherer extinguishing the torch because it gives them the advantage in darkness. But if you have a mix of people with dark vision and carrying torches, I think the first move is you have the adherer specifically attacking the people who aren't carrying torches, and if the players are smart enough to put 2 and 2 together and realize that instinctively, why isn't this thing attacking me? Then they have to make that question and then act on it. So do they attack with a torch and a vial of oil, right? So let's say that the party isn't a bunch of dummies and they figure that fire has some greater impact. And they defeat the first adherer. I think the cool thing about using different levels of these adherers and just modifying them to make them slightly more challenging as the party goes on is that the party still won't necessarily always know what the strengths of this creature are. They might not recognize when they get to another room in the catacombs or tombs or whatever, and they see piles of dead bodies. And they're thinking, oh, they're all zombies, and they poke them, but the zombies don't get up because they're actually just dead bodies. And just when they think it's safe to move through that room, the adherer emerges from a pile of dead bodies.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
And gets off a surprise attack.
They're really like malleable for what you want. They can be used in so many different ways. It's a really nice, like, usable creature.
Let's talk about one of the things I like to do with Monster Monday is how do you make the monster more diverse than just what the book says?
Okay.
So we've talked about crypts, tombs, dungeons, ruins,
illusions,
catacombs, illusions, caves, caverns,
always,
mines,
for sure.
How about underneath a city?
Like a sewer system? Oh yeah.
So if you're tempted to run your game in a more urban environment and you have a big city location, could the adherers be a small cult that operate in a portion of the sewers?
And I wonder if they're in the sewers all the time, they're exposed to a more dense level of moisture. So that might affect how, instead of it being like more dense, it slowly becomes more like liquidized. So there's just kind of like glops of it.
Glops of the glue.
Glue glops.
And maybe puddles, like you said before, puddles where the glue has mixed in. And overall, what does that do? It just makes difficult terrain. Which makes it easier for them to attack. Now you have a whole sewer environment, and that could turn into a whole massive thing. All right, so we have talked about locations, how to deal with these in encounters, how to deal with it adventures. If you were going to build a whole campaign arc around adherers, how would we need to expand this?
I would I do like the idea of like the sewer system.
Mm-hmm.
I think what could be cool is if your party has a town that's kind of like their home base.
Yes.
You have like warning signs of these guys. So there's like the little like puddles of this like weird sticky substance start like emerging by the sewer grates.
Yes.
And eventually one of the NPCs that they have grown to trust gets taken.
Yes.
And they have to kind of figure out what's happening. And you can even throw in that cult aspect. You can throw in some like illusionist shenanigans, if you will.
Yep.
To just kind of throw them off track.
Yep.
It all depends.
So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
What if you wanted to make these a central part of your campaign? My go-to is you create a faction. In other words,
Okay.
you think of why are these adherers around?
Yeah.
Why would the party keep encountering them throughout a campaign, not just in one adventure? And I think it goes back to a faction. You have to have some big bad end guy. Maybe that
Yeah.
big bad end guy is your illusionist.
See, that's what I'm thinking.
Your
'cause
evil
these guys
illusionist.
don't seem like they occur too naturally, so I feel like they
Right.
for sure were made. And I think that would definitely be something that an illusionist with the assistance of someone else
I
would-
got it. An illusionist and a necromancer are best friends.
Yep.
The necromancer makes skeletons and zombies and other things.
The illusionist.
The illusionist creates all these environments, but
Yep.
what does this faction want? Power.
Obviously.
But maybe they have something. Maybe the illusionist and the necromancer each have responsibility for powerful artifacts.
Okay.
And they have acquired 3 of the 5 powerful artifacts that they need.
They need to.
They are hiding those 3 that they have in
Okay.
3 different locations, protected by adherers who are members of a cult that serve the necromancer and illusionist.
There you go.
And then there are 2 of these missing things. So by the time the party starts to really figure out what's going on, and at each of these adherer encounter locations, when they fight the big bad adherer, they find this special artifact that's a piece of
Yeah.
the 5 things.
Yeah.
And that allows the party to start to figure out, and then research and investigation, arcane knowledge. They start to figure out that these 5 artifacts were used 1,000 years ago to open up a portal to an alien world
Yep.
where the adherers come from. And right?
Yeah. No, for sure. And then the illusionist.
And now it's a race to get the last 2 artifacts to stop the illusionist and
Yeah.
necromancer. And maybe the party doesn't even know who the illusionist and necromancer are until like the very end.
Oh, for sure.
High
Yeah.
level.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But they've encountered these adherers in their own home city in the sewers and in this ruined catacomb system dungeon
Yeah.
area of another region that they've tracked, this stuff down to.
Kind of want, if we're holding off on revealing the identities for the illusionist and the necromancer, I want there to be a twist. I want it to be like
Yes.
someone they knew the whole
Yeah.
time. But you have to
The
like
illusionist-
safeguard that like no one's business.
Right. The illusionist could be somebody who they know, who
Some-
they've known and
yeah.
maybe trusted. Like
Or
a noble.
who got them started on this.
Oh my God, wait, that was it. The illusionist,
Yeah.
pretending to be a well-known, respected, good noble in their community,
Yes.
has asked them to find the artifacts because they're
Yep.
an adventuring party.
Yep.
And that's the twist.
Yep, the
That's
whole
the double
time.
cross. Oh
Yep.
my God, that's a great campaign idea.
That'd be so much fun.
I'm going to use that in the future.
I can't wait to play that because I would have totally forgotten this conversation. Be like, what's this? Sticky substance.
Wait a minute, find an artifact.
Sure.
Glue-like substances.
What's this?
All right, so that is, in a nutshell, the Adherer, which you can find in this most excellent, thick, and sturdy book made
Yes.
by Troll Lords Games, Castles and Crusades, Monsters and Treasure Book. Just a cornucopia of awesome ideas. And this is yet another episode of Monster Monday, and Fen and I have explored the Adherer, which I hope you may have some ideas about. And if you have ideas, share them in the comments below.
Yes,
if you've
please.
encountered or used the Adherers in your games, share those in the comments below. We love to read those. And until we meet again, I wish you happy gaming and D20s all day long.
Yes.
Peace.
Bye.
hello, and welcome to Bill Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.